G'day, community, and welcome to the Jock Reynolds Supercoach podcast. I am Lekdog. I'm joined by Patch. Patch, how are you?
I'm okay, Lekdog. I'm alright. We're back into the swing of things with some men's footy with some practice matches and stuff that were kind of half televised. So it's interesting. It's a strange time to be alive.
I wouldn't consider much of what happened over the last weekend football, but there was some games of
Hey,
Australian rules football
there
played,
were balls, feet were involved somewhere.
and it was available to be watched, technically speaking.
Yes. How much of it? I would go straight into how much of it is usable.
That's my answer to that.
Yep.
I've cracked a can because the only way you can dive into this is and actually take it seriously is with a beer in hand, I think. Because, Patch, I watched too much of this. Not as much as the great Foz Daddy, Matthew Forrest, who writer for Jock Reynolds, writer for Geelong Advertiser, who sat down, watched every game and recorded every CBA and kick-in, which is madness.
And every ruck centre bounce attendance as well.
Attendance. So, apart from him, I sat down and watched a lot of these games, and I don't know what to take out of it. Did anything change your mind? Did you let this affect you at all?
So what I did, I didn't get the chance to watch many of these games because they were on Thursdays and Fridays, which were days which I was doing my job and working, and managed to watch a little bit on the Thursday night, the Friday night, whichever night they had games on. I watched a little bit of one or two games, and then kind of fed in off what a lot of people were saying on social media and the match reports. I kind of, looked through those. And what I got out of it is that every single player in my Dynasty Keeper League is going to do incredibly this year. And then I got to the Friday night, and I changed my team and threw everybody that had done well in the team, and then hit clear team, and then put what I had back in there beforehand. I just got it all out.
Very good.
There is a little bit of intel to take out of it, but basically the only stuff that I would take out of these games, I would need to see backed up in the next week of practice matches in the next week or so to have any bearing on what I'm doing. And you, as you've alluded to, you're also a skeptic as to how much information that comes out of these is good or useful.
I think we're probably given more information around the sort of 22nd, 23rd men than we are anything else. Chincotta played for Carlton, so did Hollands, and so did Cowan. Hollands, I think we know is probably going to play a significant amount of games this year, but it's interesting to see that Chincotta and Cowan played, so I had some interest in that respect. I had some interest in seeing that Matthias Philippou kicked into gear after that first half where he didn't touch the ball. There is some interest there. I don't think we should let this sway our decision on premiums. There's some information I guess we can get out of rolls for mid-prices, but I think I'm with you. The what happens next week and is carried over from this week is what's going to be interesting.
Exactly. Like we see James Sicily get given centre bounce attendances, and unless it happens again next week, I'm not going to put any stock in that because there are a few players missing from a bunch of different sides. But yeah, I think it's more about the rookies, more about the is the one guy you're like deciding to keep in a keeper league going to be worth keeping, or do you ditch him? Because there's not a huge amount you can really pull out. But we'll have a quick look game by game, quickly squeeze across. What did seem interesting, what didn't seem interesting. There wasn't a lot interesting out of Geelong thrashing Hawthorn by 80 points in Geelong in a preseason game. But I went back and watched the first quarter because I hate myself and I'm an absolute nuff. And Dasava Radigalia is looking interesting.
Yes, he is. Matt Forrest, Foz Daddy, he's very close to Geelong. I don't think he's confident still that he's going to be the one that seeks the team. But if he gets named round one at 170k,
yeah, ruck forward.
Ruck forward who's playing in defence. He's someone we should consider, and that's what we're looking for, right? I'm looking for reasons think I spoke about it with Damo last week on the pod. Looking for reasons to not pick Ben King. And Esava Ratugolea is probably a reason not to select Ben King if he's named and he plays well in the second game.
Yeah, Fergus Green looked like somebody who, again, we thought he would just play, and he played, and is playing as a a medium sized forward in Hawthorn's forward line, so will not touch the ball all that much, but looks like somebody we can be pretty confident in bringing in, and I think Warple is just kind of what you're going to get out of Warple, and we saw. Sicily. Sorry, we saw what we're going to get out of him. You knew that already. Nothing changed. I would read nothing into the CBAs that he got.
Yeah, so Foz put together the numbers for everyone to read. Follow him on Twitter at Matt, M-A-T-T, Forrest, F-O-R-R-E-S-T 29. And while I'm shouting at people, go and follow the super coach godfather, Abdul, who was top 4 finisher last year at Magic Moments 000. You'll know him from his famous YouTube videos. He's got us up to 1,000, and you guys got us up to 1,000 subscribers throughout the week, and he's doing it again with the centre bounce. So go and find him on YouTube at ABS Magic, Abs Magic. Go and subscribe. Anyway, Foz, he had the CBAs for the first 4 periods of 8 periods or whatever it was.
8 quarters, please.
For Geelong, Bruin, Holmes, Dangerfield, Parfitt, Guthrie, Atkins all had 30% or more. Clark and Bowes snuck in. And Hawthorn, it was Jai Newcomb, Warple, Will Day, and Ward and Huswaite, who had 30% or more. So there's some interest there in like a Huswaite at 123 grand. Not sure he makes the team, but one to watch. And I've seen a few people on Ward, Josh Ward from last year as a second-year breakout. I'm not particularly excited by him playing sort of an outside role, but what do you think?
No, I think there's a little bit of interest in Will Day. I'll be watching him closely in his next practice match just to see kind of, the roles obviously there. They obviously need somebody in the midfield. So he's a person of interest, but I need to be doing a lot of work to get in that side. Josh Ward, I'm always skeptical of second year players. Not, the second year blues is well touted, but, it's been debunked by a bunch of players. I still, Ward dropped away a bit last year. He'll drop away again this year because he's young, and that's what happens. I suspect he'll miss games either from being rested or from being injured, because there are a lot of big bodies that he'll be coming up against in that midfield. And if he's being asked to play as a full-time mid, it's a big ask for a 19-year-old kid, as good as he is. So, yeah, I'm still not crash hot on Warple as much as he's getting a bunch of centre bounces. He had, 55 or whatever % centre bounces. He still can't kick the ball to save his life, and Supercoach likes players that can kick balls to save their lives.
Yep. Agreed. I'm not buying stock in him. And the ruck attendances for Hawthorn, Reeves had 73%. For Geelong, Stanley 60%. And the next notable, Segler 40%. And for Hawthorn, Meek only had 17%. So
it looks like Meek's going to play out of full forward. So if you were thinking of starting him for some ungodly reason, probably wouldn't. That'll, that centre bounce will increase as the season goes on, and they get Mitch Lewis back. But I just don't do it. Don't do it.
All right, final thoughts on this game, Patch. In my team, from these two teams, I only had 2 players, Fergus Green and Josh Weddle. Fergus Green's going to stay on my bench. Weddle may come out for another defensive rookie.
I'm in the exact same boat. I've got Ratugolea in there, but he's kind of a placeholder, and he was someone that's not Ben King. After listening to you and Damo talk last week, I decided that yes, in fact, Ben King is a
solid rule.
It's a pretty solid rule. It does the job. And at this stage, I don't have anyone else from that game. Geelong as well, a club I'm kind of trying to avoid, similar to Gold Coast, because they've got that early bye. So I want to stack up on those players after that bye, where we go down to best 18. Big chance to just pull ahead if you're playing against a team that's got James Stewart and Mitch Duncan and Jared Witts and whoever else you would be starting from one of those 2 clubs.
All right, Suns Bombers, the headline CBAs, courtesy of Matt Forrest. For the Suns, Anderson 60%, Rao 60%, Davies, Swallow, Blakely, He was with the second group of midfielders.
Yeah.
They were all above 30%.
No Took Miller in that game as
No Took
well.
Miller. Flanders just 8.7%. For the Bombers, Parish 78%. Setterfield 74%. Merritt 47%. Caldwell, Perkins, and Shield were all above 30%. And the ruck attendances for that game, let me find some. Gold Coast Wits had 58%.
Ned
Essendon
Moyle.
had 42%. Draper from Essendon had 42%. They were the leaders. And then it was like Phillips and, God knows who, Moyle.
Nick Bryan. Yeah, a few hangers on.
And Foz actually did the kick-ins for this game as well. So Charlie Constable took 50% of the kick-ins for Gold Coast, played on 4 from 4. Long took 2 from 2. McPherson 1 from 1. And from Essendon, this is the one that's exciting people. Ridley took 3 from 3. Hind 1 from 2. Redmond and McGrath took 1 each as well. So they're your key stats from the game. Patch, what did you take out of it?
Essendon are going to win the premiership in 2023.
Didn't they cancel this game early while Essendon was ahead? Both teams just decided, no, we're not playing anymore.
You can't beat that strategy, Lekdog. The second we start fast and then cancel the game, it's flawless.
You do have to get ahead, though. That's the tricky bit for Essendon this year, I reckon.
What do you mean? I don't understand. I'm not quite following you. We just get ahead and then we cancel the game.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is the get ahead part might be difficult for you.
How? Explain how. I don't. But we just do it.
Let's chat offline about Essendon. I've got some news to break to you.
I don't understand.
Did anyone put their hands up for you from this game that you weren't already considering?
Look, Jordan Ridley, I've been trying to not consider for quite some time because he burnt me a bit last year. I want to see it in the flesh that he's playing, not playing lockdown on a player, and I think that'll depend more on the availability of other players as opposed to whether or not that's something that that our new coach is desperate for to happen. I think it'll depend on if Brandon Zerk-Thatcher is not fit or Zach Reed's out and Jaden Laverde's busy with Tom Hawkins, then, well, he's going to have to play on Jeremy Cameron or whoever else. So I don't know. Mason Redmond's still in my side. But again, there's nothing from this game that made me think more or less of him as a selection. Setterfield's interesting, but I'm not going there. And then it's hard to read too much into the Suns midfield based on the fact that Took Miller was out. So Alex Davies interests me, but does he get any mid-time if Took Miller's back? I don't know. I don't know. Charlie Constable, that could happen.
Yeah, Charlie Constable is probably the one that I've got on my bench. I think everyone does. If we said all preseason they need someone to take over one of those halfback sort of roles, and apparently he's the one. I still just have this feeling in the back of my head that he's going to disappear, but that's all right. At the moment, he's in my side. I didn't take heaps out of this. For me, looking at my team, I've got Constable, King, and Parish in my team from this game. I mean, I'm not taking anything out of it, but it maybe adds 1% more lock to Darcy Parish for me.
Yeah, I mean, Jai Menzies was quite good, and I think there's every chance he gets to round one. He was a small forward, so you know what you're going to get with a small forward. There'll be 31 week, 65 the next week, 20 the next week, and then, it'll be very, very up and down. Bally Humphrey as a rookie for the Suns, still, like, he's probably there round one. He's definitely there, I think, if Took Miller doesn't get up, but I think he plays more forward than he does mids, so, we'll have to see there. But aside from that, there weren't too many players I was considering from either of these clubs. Obviously, the guns at the top, your Merritts, your Parishes, they didn't get out of second gear, and you wouldn't expect them to. But it's hard to read anything on Gold Coast with Took Miller and Jed Anderson both missing. Brandon Ellis missed as well, so there's a bunch of players that weren't lining up that would take minutes.
If Took doesn't play in the practice match, but is named in round one, what's your advice for people?
Go with your gut. I don't know. It's hard to judge really. He might start a little bit slower. He'll still be good. He'll still be quite good, but I was already in the camp of hold off on Gold Coast and Geelong players until after their buy in round 8, 9, and then jump on then. And this is probably helping the case that Took maybe dips in price a little bit, and we try and pick him up as that first really big upgrade in the middle.
Agreed. Let's talk about the next game, Roos v Tigers.
Oh, God.
Courtesy of Foz. CBAs after the first 4 quarters for North. Davies Uni 82%. Phillips, Zerha, Powell all above 50%. Curtis Shields filled out with like 10% each. Now in Richmond, it was Taranto and Hopper at 70% with Short. In the CBAs, Prestia over 50% as well. He was swapped out with Dow, who replaced him in that role. Kicking stats, Zeeble, who was already locked into my team, played on 5 from 5. So he might be just quietly throwing away the key. McDonald, 4 from 4. Rioli, 5 from 6 for Richmond. Vlosten, 4 from 4. And Ralph Smith, 2 from 2. And the ruck situation, Tristan Cherry had 74% of the ruck. Nank, the third highest total point scorer in the ruck last year, had 70%. And then I think it was just filled out by, Ben Miller. Is that his name, Ben Miller?
That's, Ben Miller, Callum Coleman-Jones.
Callum Coleman-Jones, yeah. And I think I'm assuming based on that Todd Goldstein did not play for North Melbourne.
That is correct. Todd Goldstein was not playing. Neither was Ben Cunnington, Hugh Greenwood, Jai Simpkin, obviously Taran Thomas, and Darcy Tucker was also not playing. George Wardlaw didn't get a run, which is a bit disappointing. We kind of wanted to see how he'd go. So it's hard to read too much into, again, similar to the Gold Coast side, because you're missing so many players. Does Tom Powell get anywhere near that? I don't know, probably not. Do we see Will Phillips getting as much game time? I don't know. It's really hard to tell. So it's one you kind of need to watch next week. 66.7% CBAs for Will Phillips. So in there for a third of them. I don't know. It's hard to take too much out of the Roos there beyond Zeeble and Harry Sheasel, who lit it up and looks like he's, again, will be kind of a half forward. So be slightly more consistent than Nijai Menzies, but will come in at nearly 200k, which are you interested there in Harry Sheasel?
I actually haven't had him in my team, I don't think, at all at this stage. And the worry was about spending 200k on a guy that might just get stuck at sort of half forward. And he may outperform that, but I just think based on the players they bought in, both draftees, returning players like Will Phillips, and mature ages like Liam Shields and Daniel Howe, I just couldn't see exactly where he fits in the midfield. So he's a no from me.
No, that's fair enough. As you've spoken about Zeeble pretty extensively, I think that just kind of confirms that's the defensive role he'll play. That means his value. It's 2021 all over again. Hopefully without all the bad things that happened in 2021. But I think he's a pretty safe choice based on that. But from Richmond, that's their midfield. Hit send tweet. They're done.
It's do you have Tim Taranto in your side?
I'm currently tossing up between, I want Dunkley, Rosie, Taranto, and Dillmore. I want 4 of them. I have space for 3 of them. One of them will be Dunkley, so I'm kind of deciding between 2 of Rosie, Taranto, and Dillmore. And at the moment, they're just interchangeably just fluffing around.
I've seen some teams with Taranto or Rosie or Dunkley or whatever sitting in the midfield, which initially I thought was crazy. As this preseason progresses, I'm starting to see some validity in it, in that you're locking in 4, in theory, underpriced forward options that are going to be top 6 to 10 forwards, you'd think, if health permitting. I don't know. I really like my team as it is, and I just don't know if I can fit. I just don't know if I can fit Taranto in. Hopper is just in. He's just in. He's just in my team.
Yep, Hopper's not currently in my team. I know his value. I know he'll average 85, 90. I know he's good and sensible. He's just not in at the minute. I just didn't have the cash. I traded him down to Callahan from the Giants and then kind of didn't have the cash to move him back. And I have no doubt he'll find his way back in because the role is there. We knew the role was there, but it's nice to see it confirmed. They weren't really missing anyone in the guts that would take the time take his time away from him in the midfield. So, yeah.
Forgot to mention when we did speak about, by the way, Richmond, there might be a spot in there starting 23 available because Castagna retired today at time of recording. Yeah, George Castagna retired today at time of recording. And I forgot to mention when we were talking Essendon that there's a chance Dyson Heppel will miss with an injury at the start of the season. But to be honest, I thought there was a chance he'd miss even if he wasn't injured.
Yep, correct. So I don't know how much that changes things. But yeah, Castagna wasn't playing in this game. So yeah, interested to see what happens there. If that's more of a, if we get, I assume it'll be like a Tyler Sonsi or a Thompson Dow or someone that we don't really have much interest in from a Supercoach Classic perspective. But
they did give some game time to Dow. When he came in, he replaced Prestia in that game.
So I'm intrigued just to see who they slide in, but I don't know. I don't think it's relevant for Supercoach. I don't think it's someone we'll be picking or a rookie that suddenly flies in.
No. Let's talk Swans Lions. I'll go through the CBAs.
Are we skipping over Geelong, Carlton and Collingwood?
Well, I just have Foz's stats up, so we'll do Lions, Swans first, and then we'll go to Carlton, Collingwood. Swans, Parker, Goulden, 70% each. CBA, Rowbottom, 55. He was talked about a lot by guys like Statesman as a breakout this year. Warner, 44. Mills, 33. Roberts, 14. Lions, Neil, 67. Dunkley, 67. Love to see it. McCluggage, 63. Ashcroft, 44. Bailey, 33. And my boy Reece Matheson, 18.5%. And for the rucks in that game, McAndrew for Sydney was the main ruckman. Tom Hickey injured for at least the first part of the season, Patch. There's potentially some interest there. And I've already forgotten who they played. Sydney v Lions. Oscar McInerney took 51%. Darcy Fort took the other 50%.
McAndrew is the big one that's kind of bolted out of that game. I don't think we kind of realised, I certainly didn't realise how dire Sydney's ruck stonks were, and they're not good. But in terms of Supercoach scoring, Lachlan McAndrew is also not good.
He is 123k ruck forward though.
He is. So I mean, there's interest there. It'll depend entirely on Thomas Hickey and how far off playing football he is, because they will not persist with McAndrew for a minute longer than they have to. I feel so.
That's the question. You talk. I'm going to look up Tom Hickey's injury.
So I don't think there'll be too much scope there. Matty Roberts interests me as well. He had massive numbers as a junior. The Phantom from Supercoach Lair loves him. He scored a bunch of 200s in his under-18 year in South Australia. Maybe there's scope for him in there. Callum Mills, not a lot of centre bounces, is interesting. Very, very interesting. I know there's been discussion, and I think Damo talked about it on a mailbag, that there's every chance that Mills goes back, especially when the Swans start doing poorly. They might push him back into defence just to calm everything down. Errol Goulden, though, if anyone was jumping on top of him, you'd be very, very heartened by what you saw with 70-odd% centre bounce attendances. Looks like they are using him as a midfielder based on that. You'd want to see that confirmed next week, but it's certainly an interesting one and could throw a few structures out if you suddenly, he does it again next week and we then have to try and scramble and see if there's a way to fit him in.
He's an exciting player. He's a very, very exciting player. What, an awkward price of about 470k. You're basically betting him against Rosie, Taranto, etc., which is probably a pretty difficult roll of the dice. But
I mean, on the flip side, if you've done your team and you've got somehow got 100k left over, you can potentially go up from a Jack Siebel stepping stone to a top 10 forward in Goulden if he does get that throughout the season. So there's still a bit of intrigue there if you've still got a 5 for a Siebel and you're looking to go up.
I'll say that the benefits of someone like a Jack Siebel, this is just thinking off the top of my head, is that we know he's going to gain defensive status. So assuming he comes out and is scoring well, you got to also weigh that up that it at round 6, you will be able to swing him into defense. I'd factor that a little bit into decision making.
Yeah, and that's fair. It's I think something just to monitor at this stage. I wouldn't be moving heaven and earth and switching my entire structure around to fit Errol Goulden in, but something to watch next week.
Yep, and for me, this hasn't changed anything. I've still got Ashcroft and one of Wilmot or what's his name? Connor McKenna. Depends which one gets named.
Yeah, and I still reckon there's only space for one of them, but we'll see. There's every chance they kind of swap around a little bit, and Wilmot's a sub or McKenna. I think McKenna would be a really good sub from a football perspective because he's real speedy and can play forward or back. I think there's scope either way. Wilmot was part of the wing rotation, so it's interesting to see how he goes there and where he kind of fits in.
They're going to be so good. Let's talk Blues
I'm
Pies.
intrigued as well, before we move on. Joyce.
Dah.
I don't know, maybe if he gets a run, that's something I'll be trying to keep an eye out.
I actually have been kicking his name around in the back of my head because I was going through...
Because it's a great name.
He is 180k though, which is the downside. So he's not super bargain priced. He faces Port Adelaide in his first game, and here's his career average against Port Adelaide, or his last 3 scores: 35, 38, and -3.
All right, never mind about
I'll just read out his averages versus opponent: 23.3, 33, 60, 46, 59, 40, 40, 33, 45, 59, 46. Yeah, I thought he was 120k. He should not be someone we're looking at.
No, all right. I didn't realize he was 180k either. So moving right along.
All right, Carlton v Collingwood. I went to this game. I had a good day out.
Absolute enough areas going to Icon Park.
It was packed, and I just kept saying, why are these people here? Don't you all have jobs? Carlton CBAs, Cripps 84%, Hewitt 70%, Kennedy 60%, Chera 48%, Doherty 36%, and that was basically done in one quarter. Collingwood, DeGoey 64%, Nick Dacos 52%, Crisp 44%, Adams 40%, Tom Mitchell 36%, Lipinski, Elliott, and Dacos all went into 1 or 2. Kick-ins, Sard 3 from 4. I like Sard as a pod this year, was very high in total points last year. Newman 2 from 2, Jeremy Howe 3 from 4, Maynard Moore and Dacos 1 from 2 and 2 from 2 respectively. In the rucks, it was Tom De Koning, Mark Pitnet still getting fitness, played in the reserves game afterwards. And for Collingwood, it was not great signs if you're a Darcy Cameron owner. If you're taking anything out of this, Cox was the main man in the ruck. I'll just say this, that Darcy Cameron got absolutely bodied by Tom De Koning. He got absolutely destroyed by him when he went in there.
And Darcy Cameron's also coming back from a hamstring injury as well. So I'd be expecting a little bit of he's just getting miles in the legs. I would be reassessing next week. But yeah, the fact that he's being bodied by Tom De Koning is not a great sign.
No, it's not. But don't say that. The Carlton people will come for you. So I guess my takeouts from this game, I actually thought Tom Mitchell didn't look that explosive or impactful, but then apparently he had like 28 disposals and was just jogging. So he averages like 50 against Carlton. So I wouldn't stress too much. I don't think this game should sway anyone one way or the other.
I'm devastated Tom Mitchell can't play against Collingwood this year.
Yes,
they just don't tag him and he gets 53 touches.
I liked what I saw with Nick Dacos, and it's nothing to do with the midfield time. It's just that he continues to be a seagull and get cheapies out the back, and that's what I want. I want a man just absolutely accumulating the pill. Yeah,
I don't think there's... I'm in the camp where I currently don't have him, and I don't really want him because it feels like a vanilla, boring option, but it feels like the vanilla, boring option we're all going to have to make because he's very good and very underpriced.
And it feels like it'll be Hollands and one of Chincotta or Cowan, playing for the Blues in round one, I would have Cowan slightly ahead, although I wouldn't be surprised if both miss. Obviously, if they're named, you probably play them. I don't know what Holland's scoring output's going to be, but 166k, a starting 22 wing rotation player who spent a little bit of time. The thing the Blues did that interested me, they spent a lot of time rotating their wingers through defence, forward, and on the wing. So I want to watch the Sydney game, see if that happens again. But Hollands looks like he's going to be a secure pick.
Did Sam Doherty spend any time on the wing, or it was just in the centres to begin with and then straight down back?
No, he ran with who was he running with at times? I'm struggling to remember. He basically followed DeGoey around for a bit, so he did push up the ground defensively, and then in the third quarter he played almost exclusively as a midfielder from memory, and then a little bit of midfield, but mostly defense. When in the fourth quarter, I actually thought we looked better when he was in the midfield, although we did concede more goals when he was out of the back line. So take from that what you will.
I don't think that changes too much of what we were expecting from Sam Doherty anyway.
I've said it before, midfield or defence, I think he's going to average a pretty high amount.
Yep, he's good at football, and he's currently in my side, despite talking about going very light in the back line. I've been playing around a little bit. But yeah, I want to see it again next week, but Collingwood's midfield mix kind of scares me, and I don't really want to rely on a Tom Mitchell getting CBAs it just kind of worries me a little bit.
Look, I think Tom Mitchell's going to give us Tom Mitchell things. I just think the ceiling might decrease slightly from what we've previously seen, and that's enough for me to not start him. Yeah. There is a chance that he's this year's Paddy Cripps, but I'm not sold on it.
No, neither.
Nick Dacos, the only player from this game that's in my team. Asterix, my rookies aren't locked in, so I'm sure there'll be a couple from Carlton that pop in. Next game, Patch, was the Saints v D's, courtesy of Matt Forrest.
Stop. They're already dead.
So, Saints, CBAs, Steele, 88%, Crouch, 83%, Winega, 42%, Gresham, Clark, and Sinclair all had 30% each, or just under 30% each. Demons, Oliver, 70%, Petrarca, 50%, Petrarca season. Viney, 45%, Harms, 45%, Pickett, 42%. And Grundy had 58% of centre bounces, and Gawn had 42%. Kick-ins, May, 6 from 9. Bowie, 2 from 2. Sinclair, 1 from 4. Wangaleen, Malera, 1 from 2. And the ruck for St Kilda was Rowan Marshall with 83% of CBAs attended.
Yep, Rowan Marshall is a good pick.
He's a great pick.
He should be in most sides, and I don't think if they were ever going to try Tom Campbell or tried some weird ruck setup, this was going to be it. But basically, the only other ruck they used was Machito Owens went up for a ruck contest, which shows how dire things are down at Moorabbin in terms of big man stonks. But yeah, Marshall is locked in based on that. And then also, if you wanted to pick Clayton Oliver or Christian Petrarca, do it. Do it.
Christian, I don't want to have stacked too many players with the same buy, but Christian Petrarca was one that's floated in and out of my team. Happy to just stick with Clayton Oliver. This is how certain Ross is that he's playing Rowan Marshall as a ruck. They played Zane Cordy as a forward.
Yep.
Off-season recruit, Zane Cordy. Nick Caulfield and Seb Ross played in the reserves, but interestingly and sadly for Saints fans, Jack Billings fractured his leg in the reserves game, and he'll be out for at least 8 weeks, I think. 8 weeks of the season.
Which gives someone a run in there. Who knows who it is? Keep an eye on that for next week. If it's Caulfield, you're pretty happy with Caulfield and pretty excited by him, aren't you?
He's not in my team, but if he's named, I'll play him. And Mateus Philippou has jumped to 43% because, for many reasons, I'd say Billings' injury one, similar sort of forward role. Here's my issue with Mateus. He's going to be like an impact player, which is great if you're impacting.
Yep.
Is he going to impact, particularly at St Kilda, who I don't think are going to be the most fantastic elite team in the AFL?
No. No, I mean, he'll be good in a few years. Does he hit the ground running from day dot? I don't know. If there are other rookies at cheaper prices, I will be selecting them, um, because I think he'll largely play forward. That's where he played a lot. In his draft year, I think when he went up to senior level to reserves and league, he played forward, and he might pinch hit a little bit in the middle, but I wouldn't be banking on it, and certainly won't be if there are other options up forward. Um, for him. So Jack Sinclair, interesting. Do you think I'm not sure that many people are picking him anyway, but does he regress a little bit this year?
That's a great question. I'm pretty much always going to pick players to regress after they've had a career best year. So what was he? He was the 7th ranked player last year, scored 2,500 points for the season, averaged 113.7.
Not a lot of up to go from there.
I don't think there's a lot of up. I
There's a
think that's what
lot
we're
of
looking
down.
for. Unless your name's Clayton Oliver, I'm looking for up, and I don't think there's a lot of up in Jackson.
No, I think there's, he might repeat it, in which case there'll be a point where we can pick him up a bit cheaper. So I don't think you'd really be looking to start him. Jack Steele really interests me. He's been interesting me for a while. He's underpriced for what he can produce. God, he's good at football. God, he will be back to full fitness. It looks like he had a few niggles last year, which kind of kept him out of the centre square and not quite doing Jack Steele things. So he went like 3 weeks where he got like 2 tackles for the whole stretch of weeks. So I think he'll be back. On the Melbourne side of things, are you still interested in Brodie Grundy?
No. And for no reason other than I think a couple of guys might be putting their hands up in a more secure role. So at the moment, I've got Tim English in there. He's an injury risk, but I think he, even at 580k, has some upside. Sean Darcy, solo ruck. Riley O'Brien, not a sexy pick, but solo ruck. I think I do think Brodie Grundy at 512k is too cheap. And he did have the majority of rucks compared to Gorn, but
the majority there on a technicality though, and Brodie Grundy, I saw a few clips, and I know a lot of mainly from people who already don't like Brodie Grundy, but he's not a forward. He can't play. He's not good at playing forward.
Someone put up, I can't remember who, that the best combo ever was Cox and Nick Nat or whatever it was, and they averaged like, I want to say 220 points together.
I think there was a year where Nick Nat averaged 115 and Cox averaged 110, 105.
Yeah, something like that. And you take Gorn and Brodie Grundy's scores from last year, and it's less than that. And it's like, it's going to be hard for them to be relevant. They would have to be the best duo of rucks in Supercoach ever to be relevant.
But I think just the nature of, like, in that, the good old days, and we were talking about this a while ago, of like, the first years he played Supercoach, where I remember picking Dean Cox and him being the best. Like Nick Nat played as a ruck rover. Like he would tee it up so he wouldn't start in there, but then he'd go in halfway through, and then by the time Cox was ready to go out, he'd have been playing, 10 minutes as a ruck rover and then just go into the ruck. And that's not what Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy will be doing, because they're, one, not midfielders, and two, they've got arguably the best midfield in the comp around them at their feet in Oliver, Brayshaw, Petrarca. Not that Brayshaw actually had minutes in there, but like they've got a lot of very good players at their feet, and they're not going to be throwing one of them in. So I'm not hugely interested in either of them at this stage. And it's just, I would have wanted to see Max Gawn be playing forward for 70% of the game and pinch hitting. But that's, you're not going to do that to an all-Australian ruck.
Yeah, so the only players from this game I have in my side are Oliver, Steele, Marshall, and potentially some rookies in Mateus Philippou, but at the moment he's not in there.
Yep, I've got Marshall and Steele and Oliver, and I will look at a few others. I'm really intrigued by Keziah Pickett getting a bunch of those CBAs, but not enough to really consider starting him.
All right, next game. Let's get through this. Dockers Crows. Dockers CBAs, O'Meara 80%, Brody 76, Sarong 68, Brayshaw 64, and Aish had 12. Crows, Berry was the leader with 68, Laird, Schoenberg, Crouch all had above 40. Saligo, Rankin, Rochelle, Brown, and Keys all rolled through. And from a ruck perspective, O'Brien had 87.5% CBAs, which was the number one for the week. And who would have been next? I'm looking for Sean
Himmelberg.
Darcy
Oh,
at 75%.
yeah. So Luke Jackson got the 25 and Himmelberg picked up the rest for the Crows.
Yeah, so they said they liked Jackson. They like Jackson as a forward. He won't play the second game because he's got a concussion, so he's not going to play against Port Adelaide, which makes it harder to judge a Sean Darcy. I think he's still a solid pick, and he was in my December draft of my team.
Yeah, I think Sean Darcy's well and truly back on my radar, but it's very hard to then judge it without that second game and seeing what that split is. And there's also still the concern that Riley O'Brien feels like a real Sean Darcy matchup, whereas Tom DeConning is like screams Luke Jackson matchup for when they play the Blues. And I'm still worried that it's a week by week proposition where it's not so much Sean Darcy's going to monster this person this week. It's we're going to send Luke Jackson in, and then Sean Darcy's going to monster the poor third tall defender coming out of the goal square. So I'm still a little bit worried there. I'd still probably won't touch him, but it's Freo will play that same midfield that the same thing they did last year. It's just that Jager O'Meara swaps in for David Mundy. That's it. From the Dockers side of things, they're still missing a few players, and Hayden Young was not overly influential, but it's hard to judge. You have another look next week. But the Dockers, I think, pretty much delivered what we expected them to. And if you want a Brayshaw, if you're backing Sarong to break out, if if you're still big on Jackson, there's probably enough there. Jackson looked really good around the ground. I was really impressed with him, and thought his CBAs would be a bit higher based on how much he had the ball, but I kind of watched the first quarter and a half before I had to head off. So yeah, it's a bit hard to judge.
Do you have anyone from these teams in your side?
I do not.
Neither do I, and I think that probably says enough for now.
Yeah, Rory Laird I have Rory Laird in there actually at the minute.
Hey, he's a pretty big one.
He's a pretty big one, and didn't get out of third gear and still had 15 touches in the quarter and a half I watched. He will do the same thing as he did last year.
Yeah, he's a beast. And I lied. I have Luke Pedler in my team.
Yeah, Pedler's an interesting one, not getting really the CBAs that we kind of wanted from him, but so he'll play half forward, which makes his scoring a bit iffier.
Yeah, at 173k, it makes him a bit less enticing, but we will watch as we progress through this week of practice matches. But let's move on to Eagles, Power, and yes, sorry, we're not giving the WA teams justice, but we've got to go soon. Eagles, courtesy of Matt Forrest, CBAs, Sheed 72, Yo 60, Kelly 52, Gaff 40, O'Neill and Cully were in. Power, Horn Francis 76, Wines 64, Rosie 52, and I think I said last week any game he gets more than 52 averages like 112.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Jones, Drew, and Power Pepper. And then for the rucks in this game, it was Lysette with 52%. And he was playing alongside Teakle, 33%. And West Coast, it was there was no Nick Nat, so it was Williams and Jamison.
Oofed. What a going from Gawn and Grundy to Jamison and Williams, truly the roller coaster of rucking life.
This didn't really change my mind on anyone this game. I try not to let it affect me too much. I think Yo is too hard to ignore at this point.
Yep, Yo plays in midfielder.
I'm in the minority with Dom Sheed in my team, but he's been there for a while, and I just like it. I think it's a low floor pick. And then Jinby and Chesser didn't play. I don't know if actually Jinby played or not.
Jinby did not play, no.
That makes it harder to justify picking them.
Injured toe, I think.
Yeah. Don't love that. And Rosie's in my side. I'm not buying into a Horn Francis hype. I like Wines as a bounce back year, but I'm not picking him. And Cully, I know he's been floated as a mid pricer by a few people, but he's just not someone I want to touch at like
No,
260k.
276. He's a mid only. If he was mid forward, and sign me up. But no, not as a mid only. No, I look. Sheed will be fine. He'll just be kind of a step behind Jacob Hopper, I think. So
All
yeah,
right.
unless
Breaking
you
news, by the way.
breaking
Henry will
news
undergo surgery on his foot.
that
Uh,
Jack Henry,
Jack Henry from Geelong. Sava Radaglia comes firmly into calculations for Geelong via Matt Forrest.
huge. Matt Forrest delivering the goods yet again.
This whole podcast is we should have got him on, but
We
anyway,
probably should have, yeah.
happy to just steal his hard work. To be honest,
Yep. I mean, he can't see straight based on staring at screens for that long. So, and he's talking incoherent rambling of just names and numbers and CBAs and percentages. So maybe we've done everyone a favour. Lockie Jones, I'm interested in. I was kind of like half interested in. 40% CBAs is intriguing. He was on a wing for a lot of other stretches as well. 260k forward/defender. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how you'd fit him in, but he's someone I'll be watching again next week with interest. But beyond that, I've got Yo in the side. I've got Rosie in my side. Nothing else has particularly jumped out. Nothing else that I think needs to be really changed, unless you're one of those people that thought that Bryn Teakle lining up in the A side over a practice match a week ago meant that he was suddenly ahead of Scott Lysette. No, don't have him at R2. Stop it. Just go in, change your side. Do not change it so Wasava Radaglia is at R2. Put a proper ruckman in there, and then put someone else in the forward line.
finally, Patch, the Bulldogs had an intra-club. I'm not even going to talk about it other than I'd like to see if Caleb Daniel's actually going to play midfield next week against a real team.
Yep, that's the thing I'm interested in. And then Ed Richards as well has interested me all preseason. Maybe, I don't know. I need to see it in the flesh. And
GWS.
Tom Green. Oh, it's happening. It's happening. I mean, look, I know they were playing GWS reserves and VFL side. I know that they were missing Josh Kelly and they're missing Stephen Ginigliog, and it was kind of a practice match intra-club hit out. But he got 50 touches.
Don't care.
I don't care that you don't care.
Daniel Lloyd and James Peatling kicked 3 goals each. Jake Riccardi kicked 4.
There's not a lot you can take out of that. I was picking Tom Green anyway. It just gave me an excuse to get very aroused over it.
I just haven't been sold on him. I just don't like. I know it's probably going to burn me, and all the signs are there, but I actually haven't had anyone who's been able to convince me that he's going to be better than his price point.
I'm looking at the fact that he was denied the CBAs at the back end of last year when Hopper came back, who else came back? There was somebody else that came back into that side and basically Taranto, and just cut his CBAs. He was then playing half forward a fair bit, and he also tired a bit as well, which after another preseason, less likely to happen, and the CBAs will be there all year unless they draft Clayton Oliver in the mid-season draft. I think he's basically treat him as injured for the second half of last year, and that puts him underpriced. I think he'll get close to his output from the first half of the season for the whole year is what I'm looking at, and that was averaging 110.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to do my spiel.
I'll leave it there because we got some real pretend games to talk about next week. Patch, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Lekdog, for indulging this 49-minute discussion for me just to talk about Tom Green at the end. I do appreciate it and love you dearly.
Yeah, it's going to be funny when I cut it out. And shout out to
you son of a bitch.
The mailbag. Make sure you go listen to Damo and Clarkey doing good shit.
Yeah, I'm on the mailbag this week, so you'll hear me talking more about Tom Green a bit later on. And Lekdog, you were on last week.
I was. It was fun.
All of their guests must have abandoned them and pulled out.
100%. All right. I'll chat to you next week, buddy.
See you later, Lekdog. See you later, community. I love you heaps.